Today's episode is for all my workaholics out there. You're going to want to listen to this one.
Life is beautiful.
We just interviewed our friend Guy Winch for the pod. He's a world-renowned psychologist. Actually, excuse me, Dr. Guy Winch. Got to make sure you include
Get
doctor.
his name right, bro.
You got to get his name right. He just came out with his new book, Mind Over Grind, and it's basically all about how not to let work completely take over your life.
Something that Mike really needed in his life.
Oh, yeah. I used a lot of it, but I still work a lot. But I don't think that's not a bad thing. It's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, I want today's episode to be about what I think is the single most important concept from the book and the single easiest and most impactful action you can take from the book.
Mm.
The book is really all about how burnout is this huge problem that a lot of us have and are on the verge of without even realizing it. And I joked with Guy when we were on the podcast. I said, burnout was this word that wasn't even in my vocabulary until I read the book, but I realized after reading it that I'm actually like way closer to burning out than I thought.
I mean, this happened to us the other day in the office when I was like, you're burnt out. And you were just like, I mean, I wouldn't call it burnt out. I'm like, you literally can't put a sentence together and do work that is very easy.
I work a lot. But in the book, Guy writes, our workday doesn't end when we close our laptop. It ends when we stop thinking about work. And that was the line that really stopped me in my tracks, because there's a lot of times where I close my laptop, I go home, and I'm sitting on the couch. But the whole time I'm sitting on the couch, I'm still thinking about work. I'm thinking about different ideas. I'm talking to ChatGPT about different ideas, and I'm still ruminating about work. And I didn't realize that that's still basically my mind working.
Mm-hmm.
And there's really no off switch. And so in his book, he talks about how rumination is this big problem and what you can do to fix it.
Yeah, I love what he says about rumination and how he compares it to cows eating. So rumination comes from this concept of cows eating their food and then digesting it and then basically throwing it up and re-eating it again to get more nutrition out of it. And for them,
that's hot.
And for them, it works, right? Because it allows them to get more nutrients out of the food they're eating. But for humans, it doesn't work that way, right? When we just keep thinking about the same shit over and over again, we're not pulling any nutritional value from those repeated thoughts.
Yeah. I think that's such a great analogy, because when I think back to myself and my late night 10:30 p.m. thoughts right before I'm going to sleep and I'm trying to crack some sort of code in our business, the thoughts that are being produced, like, you think they're great and then you wake up the next morning and you look at them and you're like, yeah, I should have just went to sleep. So his solution for this is to create what he calls a ritual, and he's careful not to call it a routine. He calls it a ritual because a ritual feels deeper, more emotional. And he says the way that you do that is by incorporating as many senses as possible. So basically, you want to create this transition from your work life to your home life and have sort of an off switch, because it's really hard for your brain to go from work mode to relaxed mode. So you have to, in a way, train it to do that, like a Pavlovian dog. You have to like give it cues and triggers.
Yeah.
And so he said one of the best things you can do is, as soon as you get home, change your clothes. And he gives this great experiment. He talks about how they locked people in a room and it was freezing cold and they had them do these tasks, but there were lab coats hung up to the side. And they said, listen, if you get cold, there are lab coats here. Feel free to put them on. And then there was another room where there were no lab coats and it wasn't freezing cold. And so they compared the two. And just because these people put on a lab coat, their brains operated differently and more elevated, and they thought like a scientist and they performed better on that task. So it's basically proof that what we wear signals to our brain behavioral changes. So if you go home and you change into some comfy clothes, you're starting to tell your brain, okay, it's time to wind down. It's time to relax. It's time to go to the rest and digest part of the nervous system.
Yeah. And the other sense that he says to use is your hearing. and music specifically is a great way to transition.
Yeah.
So for me specifically, what I do is when I'm cooking dinner at home, I love putting on Frank Sinatra music. When I put that music on, I get into this state of this is my task now. I'm cooking a nice dinner. I'm not thinking about work. I am in this place. And every time Frank Sinatra's voice comes on, I know that my brain automatically goes there.
Yeah, I think the other good one is smell, lighting a candle. It's basically you're just trying to set a mood for your brain that like it's time to relax
Mm,
so that the next day you can come back refreshed and revitalized and energized so that you can have this off switch.
yeah.
It's something that I've started incorporating and I wanted to make this episode about so that it might help you too if you're a workaholic animal like I am, or sorry, former workaholic. I'm not going to identify as
All
one.
right. So what's the clear cut call to action here?
Today's is actually very practical. It's to create your work to home transition ritual. Try to incorporate as many senses as possible today when you come home
So
from
can you give
work.
us an example of yours?
So mine is, like I said, the very first thing I do. Well, first I shower. That's always a good reset for me because it incorporates all the senses. It's touch, it's smell. I'm
So
not.
you,
It's not
you
not
get home
taste.
from
I'm not
work
eating the
and
soap. But other
yeah,
than that,
you get home from work and you shower right
shower
away.
immediately.
Wash the day off of you.
That tells my brain I feel the warm water. It's a different vibe. Then I change into my clothes. I put on some music. I light a candle. I start cooking dinner. There's a ritual that goes into it now. And after that, that's it.
Yeah,
It's chill time.
I like it. It's a very clear call to action. I think one that really can change your life if you start implementing it every day. All right. Thanks for hanging out with us. We love you.
Peace.